welcome to another episode of Tales from the Hellmouth, a Buffy and Angel podcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, Tom. Tom, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm excited to talk some more Buffy after quite a long time away.
Yes, it's been a while, but Tom and I are going to try and get back on a somewhat regular schedule and get back deep into our rewatch and review of the Buffy and Angel mythos. So with that in mind, it's time to get back into the swing of things. And when we last left our listeners, we did episodes 3 and 4. So we're just picking up right where we left off. So Tom, what's first up on the docket today?
First up is Never Kill a Boy on the First Date, which had the alternate title, The Anointed, which isn't quite as funny a title. I quite like the title, Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. It's
quite intriguing.
It's a fun title.
When you don't remember exactly what happened, it's like, oh, okay, makes sense. So yeah, I like the funny, the humorous title for sure. Before we get into the specifics of the episode, is there any reason why there was alternate titles for this one? Do you know?
I'm not sure. Whenever we do these things, I always like to have a quick look on IMDb and just look for a bit of trivia on the episode. And it just says the episode was alternately titled The Anointed. I don't know if that's just earlier in production and then they settled.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if a bunch of episodes have alternate titles. I'll have to look for stuff like that as we go along.
Yeah, little trivia bits for sure. Yeah. All right, so give us a brief rundown of the plot of this episode. What's going on? What's happening in Sunnydale?
Well, Buffy is trying to get her dating life back on track. She's trying to revive that a bit. She meets a seemingly nice enough guy. He's into Emily Dickinson, and she pretends that she is as well. And but meanwhile, the Master is trying to bring about the Anointed One, which is a character that we'll see a fair bit going forward. Obviously, we'll get into that as it goes along. It all ends with a fun sequence in a mausoleum. Is it a mausoleum or is it more of like a funeral parlor?
It's more of a funeral home, but yeah, I get what you're saying. It kind of has
it has a fun sort of fight scene in there, a bit of a red herring going on, which is always fun. And that's pretty much the main crux of the episode. I thought it was interesting. I don't want to say what happens after that because it's kind of a spoiler for the ending, and it'll be fun to discuss the ending. Yeah, for sure, definitely. I thought it was interesting watching Buffy try to have a semblance of a normal teenage dating life. Absolutely, she's got a crush on a boy, and he likes her too, so that's nice. And there were moments where it's like, I could kind of like as you're watching her trying to date and sort of having this battle, competition, whatever you want to call it, with Cordelia, who's trying to get the attention of this boy, but he's into Buffy. Yeah, and there's a great scene at the Bronze later on where Cordelia is sort of throwing herself at Owen, and he's not interested because he's there to see Buffy, and then she's like. Yeah, there's a great moment where Cordelia's just like, isn't it sickening? Have you ever seen a girl throw herself at a man like that? Like, talking about Buffy. And then Angel walks in and she's just immediately throws herself at Angel, and he immediately walks away and approaches Buffy, and Cordelia's face is just brilliant at that moment. Like, I really... What the hell's going on here? But I really hate early Cordelia, and... which is one of the reasons that she became one of my favorite characters, because she has such a strong arc between the two series. And it's so great early on just to see Cordelia, I wouldn't say put in her place, but she sort of karma hits Cordelia a couple of times, and it's always fun to see. Yeah, no, it was pretty, that was a pretty cool bit there. Cordelia's stuff was really solid in this episode. One of the things that I found really quite hilarious was the library stuff, specifically with when Owen
first enters the library looking for an actual book that he needs for school.
Yeah, and Giles is so surprised.
Yeah, Giles is like, "What are you doing here? What do you want?" And Buffy's like, "Well, this is a school and this is a library, and kids come here to take out books." And it's like, "Oh, right," it's like.
Which is easy to forget within Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because I mean, how often does that happen that we actually see a student come to get a book? So it's a fun moment.
Typically, you're right. It's just the Scooby Gang, as they're called.
Yeah, it's the place they go to give out exposition for the episode.
Yeah. I always liked that library set. I thought it was cool.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
It's like, man, I wish the library of my school was that place to hang out.
Yeah, it's multi-leveled. There's an upper level, and my school library was, I think typical of all school libraries.
Just one floor.
Yeah, one floor, basically one room, and that's it.
And I don't think they had as interesting books as Giles has. So
no, I'll tell you what. If my school had books about vampires and demon lore and stuff like that, I probably would have spent a bit more time there.
Yeah, and I'd been like, okay, is Buffy here just in case? Because
well, if Buffy was there, I'd definitely be there.
You get these kind of books here, I don't know. But
wait, Buffy and Willow are both in the library? I'm going to the library. They're both there.
Oh, definitely, yeah. No, but I thought that was kind of very humorous. And then the other humorous part was when Buffy's like, "Do you have an extra copy of Emily Dickinson?" And Giles is like, "Well, as earth-shattering," he says something to the effect, "as earth-shattering as you being interested in reading would be, we should stay focused on the task at hand." Which I found humorous.
He obviously must give her the book, because when she shows up in the cafeteria scene, she's got a copy of Emily Dickinson. So
right.
I'm guessing he still did his job as a librarian.
Yeah,
which is nice. He doesn't approve, but he'll still,
Yeah, and there was that back and forth the whole time where it's like when she agrees to go on the date with him, Giles shows up with his revised, updated info on the status of the prophecy, and he's like, we gotta, this is very important. And she's like, well, yeah, can that wait? Because I got a date. And then Owen shows up as they're having this conversation, and the whole Scooby Gang is there, and he's like, just the look on his face is like, what the hell is everybody doing here? and the excuse that Giles comes up with is that he's there to reprimand her about her overdue library book, and I just couldn't stop laughing. Like, this is hilarious.
Yeah, Giles always gets some good comedy moments, and I quite liked another line that Giles had later in the episode where he needs to get in touch with Buffy over the thing, and he mentions that she's got a beeping thing but no phone, and it's just it's so funny because he actually says but no phone, obviously, and it's like a few years later completely reverse that line. But I don't know how Buffy would have worked if cell phones were a big thing at that time.
That would have been interesting. Well, I mean, I'm trying to think.
I can't remember her ever getting one, to be honest.
No, but I'm trying to think if the updated comic, because how Boom Studios has that comic line where it's rebooted, but for modern, like in a modern day setting. I'm pretty sure she has a cell phone.
She would be the only teenager not to have one.
Yeah, I know Xander and Willow do, so I'm assuming. I'm pretty sure Buffy does as well, but yeah, that would have been interesting. But it's cool with when they make references to pagers and stuff. It obviously dates the show, but I think that's kind of cool because I grew up with that stuff in the consciousness, right? So
absolutely,
that's fun. But yeah, the excuses that Giles and crew come up with are quite humorous.
It's funny that Xander and Willow sort of pretend that they're dating and suggest a double date at one point, and Buffy's just confused. I don't think she quite picked up that they're trying to just get her away at that moment. Yeah, and that was kind of fun.
And it's funny because
I feel bad for Willow in that moment because Willow really does want to be dating.
Yeah, Xander at that point of the story, that's what she wants. But and for a long time, for the early parts of the series, I think a lot of fans were expecting that to be the eventual endgame. Obviously not. The way things played out, that didn't happen.
They got together briefly.
Yeah.
While Xander was still dating Cordelia, which was Yeah, but
speaking of relationships that you didn't expect to happen.
Yeah, I'm just glad that it didn't happen, because just wait for when Tara comes along, because Willow and Tara.
No, that was
I don't know anyone who doesn't.
That was a cooler storyline, I think, how it played out. But a lot of people in this early stage were probably expecting that, okay, eventually.
I mean, it was the love triangle kind of thing. Well, even more than that, you factor in Angel as well. But Xander likes Buffy. Yeah, Buffy likes Angel, but Willow likes Xander.
It's funny though how, like, every time Buffy is interrupted, like, all anybody wants to do is basically discuss her duties as the Slayer. You know, like Angel's there, and he's wanting to bring her up to speed on the prophecy. When Xander and Willow are there, they're trying to pull her away to go help Giles. When Giles is there, he's talking about the prophecy. So, like, this episode does a good job of kind of showing that in Buffy's position, the idea of a quote unquote normal life, I mean,
it's just not going to happen.
That ain't going to happen.
That's
for you.
That's the sad thing. And she tries multiple times to get that to happen.
Yeah.
And it never really does.
Like it's almost like fated that the only kind of person or people that she could have a relationship with are the people that she does end up having relationships with, right?
And it's strictly as well, like, it has to be people that know she's the Slayer. And it's just how do you even bring someone in on that sort of circle of trust? Like, because I mean, you can't. If she had told Owen, that would have been the worst mistake ever, considering the ending of the episode.
Oh yeah, no.
It's just, I think it does really bring home for Buffy, and it's a cool lesson for the episode actually to have for her, like something she learns basically at the end about just sacrifice, and she's not going to have a normal life, and she's going to have to adjust the way she does things. And I'm glad that she gave it a shot, because it would have been much more sad if she never did. But yeah, the lessons learned at the end of the episode, and I think it's a strong one for someone in her position.
It was definitely cool to see her try, but
and she tries again a few times later on, but
But it's that very difficult and hard lesson that she needs to kind of accept her, like, not that she wasn't accepting her responsibility before, but this really hammers home that
it's a bit more complicated than perhaps she realized.
Yeah, and
it's interesting with Owen as well, because I mean, he does seem like a really nice guy for the majority of the episode.
Yeah, it's not like he was, and it's funny because I'm like, because I didn't really have a memory of this episode that was vivid. When the Master was talking about, the Anointed One, or how, there's going to be the 5 that die, and then the one that's going to rise. For a bit early on, I thought, was that going to be Owen? Because I had totally forgotten the gist of what happened in this episode. So,
see, this is probably one of my favorite episodes from season 1. So, like, I do have quite a strong memory of it, but I will clarify and just say, though, it's mostly because of the way that the fake Anointed One was dispatched at the end when he was thrown into the the incinerator. I just think that's such a cool, like, vampire death, and I just love that moment. And I always remember the whole fight scene in the funeral parlor, like, plus Giles hiding inside the cooler with a dead body.
Yeah, and he's like, when Buffy finds him, he's like, this fellow was lucky enough to bunk with me while I hid, I
just like as well that it was just, I forget the exact wording that he said, but it was like 2 of them showed up, and he used his training and he hid.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Giles can fight. I think Giles could have taken 2 vampires.
Probably.
I mean, certainly later on. I mean, he does have a tendency to get knocked unconscious a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe not, but he was probably smart to hide.
I mean, at that point in the series, we also didn't have the deeper knowledge about Giles that we would get later, as the series went on.
Yeah. It just shows to me just they were still kind of working things out in season 1, and Giles wasn't quite the badass that he became.
Which is true of most shows, right? Season 1 is always the find your footing kind of.
Absolutely, yeah.
Kind of thing. But I did like that the whole third act in the funeral home. I thought was great in terms of the fight choreography was good, but also even the unexpected moments, like when Xander, Willow, and Owen are sequestered in that office, and you think they're safe, right?
Yeah, and then you see the window.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh no, but it's like the way that was all choreographed and how it all played out. You really didn't expect that, so I really like that aspect of it.
I like as well that the vampire broke the window with his forehead. Like, he just headbutts it. And I just think, what a badass way to do it. Like, he could have punched it, he could have picked up something and thrown it through, but no, he used his forehead.
I mean, he doesn't have to worry about concussions. So
no, absolutely not.
So
he's got that vamp strength now.
Use your head.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, that final fight and the way the vampire, bites the dust.
Yeah, it's a good moment, and I think it was set up really well. Like, I mean, all the scenes with the Master in this episode, like just setting up the lore. Like, there's a lot of exposition there, but it's told in such a sort of because it's told via the way of like quite a well-worded prophecy.
Yeah,
it stops it feeling boring. It feels like, oh, we're learning something, and it's a really nice way to do it. It's not just Giles reading from a book.
Right, and the way the Master kind of delivers.
Oh, the Master's every line the Master delivers is just gold.
It's a mix of casual, humorous, and menacing, and he switches between the three so effortlessly.
Oh yeah.
That it's very well done.
And I especially like how the Master is he finds out one of the vampires that's supposed to be helping bring this plan into action has gotten impatient and got himself killed by Buffy. And so what he does is he punishes one of the others. Like, he lifts him up by the neck and all this, and it's just like, yeah, the Master just doesn't give a shit. Like, if the Master's angry, he'll happily kill his own people.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, because in certain instances, in the way he talks and the way he delivers lines and stuff, you can get complacent and think, well, I mean, he's not as threatening as you think. But then there's those moments where he flips the switch and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, like he can.
I mean, just look back to the first two episodes. I forget which it is, episode 1 or 2, but when he says you've got something in your eye and just pokes his sharpened fingernail straight through one of the vampires' eye. Yeah. I love that moment, and the Master's is such a cool villain. Like, it's just such a shame that he was dispatched at the end of series 1. But
yeah, you think he could have stuck around a little longer. But
the only other time we really see him is when the First in the final season briefly impersonates him.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did you think about the end reveal of
the Anointed One being a kid? Yeah. It's funny because obviously on repeat viewings that twist is it's coming, because as Buffy fans we are more than familiar with who the Anointed One is. Right. But they really set it up. Like, there was a great red herring. Like, you totally could buy that this guy that's like quoting end of the world type scripture the entire episode and saying like he's been judged and all of this stuff. You can totally buy that guy could be the Anointed One. You're like, yeah, he's kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
And then for the end to switch it and it's a kid. I love the idea of it being a kid and it being unexpected, but I don't know. I don't feel in execution it worked as well as it should.
Yeah.
I was more than happy when Spike came along and did what he did much later on.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. In regards to the review, I think the fact that it's a kid is interesting, but the execution of it, I think, is a little bit.
And I don't know if it's just because of the kids like acting. Like, I never like to criticize the acting of a child. Like, they haven't had nearly as much experience as an adult actor, so of course their performances aren't going to be as good.
Of course, yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like maybe they should have cast somebody else, but that's just me.
I would agree with that. And then I also like just to talk briefly about the ending with Giles and Buffy, because Owen basically says he wants to see Buffy again, but he
doesn't really want to see Buffy. He just wants to get into trouble. Yeah. And he's just like, let's just go like walk through town at 3 a.m. and pick a fight in a bar. and it's just like, yeah. I mean, I thought you were a good guy, but that's a little bit messed up. Like it's such a poor reading on what Buffy's actually doing. Granted, he hasn't been explicitly told what it is Buffy does,
right.
But I can see why Buffy didn't want to be with him at that moment.
Of course, and it really is like you can see like the realization and the heartbreak that she's like, okay, I'm not destined to have a normal, relationship. And what I liked about the whole
Giles
thing
is so nice in that scene, the way he tells about what his father said to him, like when he was told he was going to be a Watcher and all this.
That's
what was it Giles said he wanted to do? Did he say he wanted to be a fighter pilot or something?
Yeah, a fighter pilot, or I think he said a grocer was the second option. But
Watcher's good too.
Yeah, no, but I just liked Giles's understanding and kindness there. Outside of the reprimands and the snarkiness and the one-liners, it shows you how much he does care for her. And you start to see that explicitly in a moment like that. So I really like that. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about this episode, or?
There was another line that Giles said that I really enjoyed. I thought it was quite a funny line, and it's so typical of Giles. And that's when he's talking about. He says, like, Emily Dickinson, interesting choice, good poet for and Buffy goes, a woman. He goes, an American.
That was funny, because you think that he's gonna say,
you think he's gonna say a woman?
It's gonna be because she's a woman, but
it's because she's an American. I just thought that was fun. That's a funny line. But let's just have a look at my notes, see if there's anything else. I as much as I like the dating drama in this episode, I feel like the Anointed One story would have been strong enough on its own.
I'd agree with that.
But I kind of wish that this had been split into 2 episodes. Like, maybe, I don't know. But it's a strong episode. It's one of my favourite episodes from season 1. And the only thing I'll say is I kind of wish Owen had died in that scene, because that would have been a really strong lesson for Buffy. Like, and she gets the lesson anyway. She's like, I could have got him killed, or I could have got somebody killed, and looks at Giles like she could have got Giles killed. Yeah. But I don't know. I kind of wish that he had died in that scene, because I think it would have brought that point home a lot stronger. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that would have taken it a step too far. But,
I mean, I can see it both ways.
And I will say as well, I don't know if you're a Doctor Who fan, but when he's
I've seen quite a bit of it. Yeah, I enjoy.
Like, it reminds me of the companion Clara in her final season, where she's become a bit of an adrenaline junkie, like a bit of a danger junkie. And it's just like, that's when the Doctor really should have left Clara behind, the way that Buffy left Owen behind. I think Buffy made the right call.
That's a good comparison. Yeah. Well put.
I can't think of anything else about this episode. I mean, I know I said I hate Cordelia in this, and I think she was like, I really hated her in that scene where she like knocks Buffy's tray of food onto the floor because she wants to sit with Owen. Like, but at the same time, Cordy just can't catch a break. Both the guys she goes for in this episode.
I think they wanted you to feel that.
Oh, definitely.
They wanted us to feel that.
Well, she's the typical sort of bully character, isn't she? So she was pretty irredeemable at first.
But again, she is, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, between her time on Buffy and Angel, she has one of the best character arcs.
Absolutely.
Period. So it worked. It worked effectively. But all right, if there's nothing else, I guess we could rate this episode. I can't remember if we did letter grades or out of 10.
I think we did it out of 10.
Okay, so we'll stick with that.
I'd give it a 7.5.
Yeah, I'm about the same there. I think it was solid. It moved the mythology forward, which is always interesting, and it kind of showed Buffy's struggles of trying to find a balance between living a normal teenage life and being the Slayer. So it had a bit of everything. It had some good action moments. So I'm in agreement. 7.5 out of 10. All
right. Should we move on to episode 6?
Let's go for it. Yeah.
The Pack, which I haven't got nearly as many notes on, because probably my least favorite episode of season 1. But
yeah.
Do you want to take? You might as well take us through the basic story for this one.
So basically, they're on the gang, the school is on a field trip to the zoo, and one of the kids is getting bullied by a pack of, pun intended, a pack of, basically we call them what they are, bullies,
assholes.
right? Well, that too. So they go into a hyena exhibit, and it's basically it's boarded off, and do not enter signs everywhere, and of course this pack of jerks and this young this nerd, I guess we can call him nerdier kid enter, and they're picking on him, and then so Xander sees this, and instead of letting the Slayer go in, because you never know what could happen in these scenarios. And Buffy had kind of gotten herself ready to, let's go in, but Xander was like, no, I can handle this. This isn't vampire stuff. I've got this. And it's basically Xander trying to show that he's, a tough guy, big man kind of thing, right? Anyway, so Xander runs in on, this kid getting bullied. And I think they had thrown his book over, like his notebook, and we're about, you get the sense that they were about to throw him into the area where the hyenas were kind of gated off and whatever. And then Xander stops them. But what you realize is they look into these into the eyes of this hyena, and you get that classic hypnotized, what's the word I'm looking for? Possession kind of deal happening, and the next thing you know, the rest of the episode is basically Xander and this crew of bullies going around causing havoc because they're possessed by hyenas. And then the twist of the episode we'll talk about as we go along, but that's the gist of it. Look, it's nowhere near as good as some of the other episodes of season 1, or certainly the rest of the series, for sure, plot-wise or mythology-wise. But I guess what I'll say I enjoyed about it was it allowed Nicholas Brendan and Xander to play a bit different against type.
It is always fun to see an actor get to do something different, especially in a long-running series. And I realise it's still season 1, but the fact that he got to play a slightly different character is just it's great.
I really like that aspect of it, because he was quite different than the Xander we're used to. I really felt bad in how he treated Willow.
He is super cruel towards Willow in this episode, and obviously at the end of the episode he makes out that he's got amnesia about it, but he doesn't. But it's nice of Giles to let the others believe that he does, because he really does feel bad about it, and of course he would never have done anything like that otherwise.
Right, but that brings the question, because clearly in his possessed state he seems to be aware that Willow is into him, right? And
most of the time he's which does make me think he obviously does know that Willow's into him, but
my question
which means he's always known, which is it's kind of a weird thing.
But my question is, could it have been like the possession from the hyena kind of
maybe
awakening some,
heightens all his senses, and maybe
something along that nature.
I would hope that that's the case, but
because otherwise he's just the rest of the time he's just ignoring the fact that he knows and just not bringing it up.
Maybe he's doing that because he doesn't want to break her heart, but I mean, let's face it, he's a teenager, so he wouldn't necessarily know the best way to handle that situation, so maybe he's just handling it as best he can. It's an odd one, certainly.
It was a little awkward, that part of it. It caused me to question. There was some legitimately disturbing aspects of this episode I found. So when the group of kids.
You mean when they eat the principal?
Well, first of all, before we get to that, when they eat the pig like live.
Oh, the pig. The pig is bad enough, yeah. But
I mean, they don't show it, but the implication is there, and it's like that's disturbing. Like,
yeah, I mean,
I
I'm
like
not
me a
against
good
eating
piece of
pork,
bacon, right?
but like raw.
but like
They
cooked,
ate it
right?
raw.
Yeah. So that was disturbing. And then you're right, the principal, the attack on the principal.
Yeah, they ate the principal, and like, I mean, you know what, Principal Flutie, go fuck yourself. But
basically, yeah.
Like no tears were shed for like Principal Flutie, like he will not be missed. But yeah,
because
I
even
don't
the
know if
fact
he
that he was
deserves.
dead,
He was a kind of an asshole, but I mean, he didn't
well, he
deserve
was,
that.
but nobody like when the announcement that he had been found, in his office, it's like, all right,
Yeah.
well, like at the end of the episode, they're like, oh yeah, they'll have the vice president and vice principal take over until they find a replacement, and it was like you said, no tears were shed. It's like, all right, next.
It's funny as well though, because it's just as bad as Flutie was, he was nothing compared to Snyder.
Oh no, yeah.
Like Snyder was, although Snyder had more fun moments, and let's face it, I mean Shimmerman is just a fantastic actor, so I look forward to when he comes in. He's great as Quark in Star Trek.
Yeah.
He's
a fantastic character actor for sure.
It was funny though with Flutie's death though. It's like there was like the theory is that a pack of wild animals somehow got into the office. It's like, but then where did they go? Like, did nobody see them enter or exit? And it's just
yeah, that's weird.
But I guess living on a Hellmouth, like,
yeah, but
they come up with excuses like that all the time. So
right, but who would buy that? Like, you're in California. Where's this wild animal gonna come from?
Maybe there were coyotes or something.
Yeah, maybe. But I guess I just don't find that all that believable. But we'll go with it.
But I mean, let's face it. In Sunnydale, they make excuses for so-called weird animal attacks all the time. Every time a vampire kills someone, it's there must be some sort of animal attack. Like in the first episode, like, a dead guy was found in a locker. Like, I'm sure that there's 1,000 excuses, and it's just one of those things. It's like, it's just I forget if it's an episode we've already watched so far, but it's like they said like nothing will ever be the same again, and then the next scene just shows everything back to normal, and it's just like people. I think that
we've already seen that. It was
people forget, they ignore because they have to, pretty much, like for their own sanity, they have to. So I take that as that's why nobody really thinks too much about the wild animals somehow got into the office line.
Good point. Yeah, that's fair. And then
the dodgeball scene.
Which one?
I just suddenly thought the dodgeball scene. That, like, I don't know, that dodgeball was never a thing that we really did in England. I think it's primarily an American thing. But,
yeah, we never did it here either.
Yeah, and it's just that scene was tough to watch. Like when they're all just like wailing on that guy on the ground.
Yeah.
Like Xander hits Willow with the ball as well. Like it's just another instance of Xander being really dickish towards Willow in this episode. And I mean it certainly brings you into the drama and gives you a lot to think about while it's happening. It's very uncomfortable to see, and that's clearly what they were going for.
Yeah.
But
that's the moment that they realize, that Buffy and Willow realize, okay, something's off here. Because in their mind it's like that was too cruel. Like even for Xander would never go that far on a normal.
Oh, definitely.
So that's
I mean, let's face it. Before this episode, Xander was more likely to be the guy getting hit with the dodgeballs.
Right. Exactly. So it really is a kind of role reversal. And when Buffy presents her theory or her concerns to Giles like, oh, so he's acting like a like a teenage boy,
Yeah.
And he's basically saying, look, teenage boys can be jerks. Like it's part of the routine. He'll grow out of it. And then when I forget what happens where because Buffy's insisting, check your books, check this, check that, and the other. And then Willow comes in, or somebody comes in and proclaims something. And she's like, well, now what are you going to do? I'm going to check my books. And so it's like Buffy was right. And it's like Giles is very kind of not
and
willing.
It's one of those lessons that Giles needs to learn as well. That he does need to listen to Buffy from time to time. Like
Don't
like
always
she's got
dismiss.
Slayer. He's always telling her to trust her Slayer instincts.
Yeah.
And now she does, and I do kind of like that. I like that Giles, eventually came round to her way of thinking. Like,
yeah. So that was a fun scene with Giles and Buffy. What did you make of another scene I actually thought was pretty funny was when Giles and Buffy, as they're trying to figure out what exactly is going on, and once they factor in a potential possession as part of the potential problem, when they go visit the zookeeper, and he and Giles are like having this bro fest about what they've discovered about this possession and the rituals involved, and they're getting all excited. And Buffy's like, can we, try to keep them on task, which is kind of also like a role reversal.
Oh, definitely. And
it's like when Buffy's getting excited about boys or something teenage life related, and Giles is like, okay, bring it back on task. So I thought it was a nice role reversal.
Yeah, I mean, this is an episode where role reversals are, it's a main theme of this episode. So it's interesting that Giles even got a little bit of that.
But then we get the twist. So go into a bit about the twist. Tell us, what do you think of the twist?
It was a bit obvious.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just because I've seen the episode a bunch of times. But I wish I could remember the first time I saw this episode to know if it actually worked as a twist for me. But yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, I think there's been better twists in Buffy.
Yeah.
But it's fine for what it is.
My problem with this one is it all felt too convenient.
Yeah.
Like it's like, of course it's
that guy. Yeah.
Of course the zookeeper is the ultimate villain here.
Because and to be fair as well though, who else was it going to be?
Yeah.
Because they haven't introduced any other new characters revolving around the zoo in this episode. Yeah. So it's So who else is it going to be? It certainly wasn't going to be like the kids in the pack. Like they were as surprised as anyone when that happened.
Right, and then when they tell you that when they're going through the particulars of how to reverse the possession, and the exposition tells you that they have to transfer it from one like into another person. Well, you're like, well, it's obviously going to be him because he, like you said, he's the only other one that was introduced close to the zoo, right? Like involved with the zoo. So it became very obvious how it was going to happen.
I think it would have been a stronger twist if maybe they'd introduced a second zoo-related character, and maybe this other character was like a super nice guy or something, and it's just like you don't expect it to be him. That would have been an interesting reveal.
Right.
But as it stands, I almost feel like they needed one extra character just to sort of to make it a little bit less obvious. That's why.
And while I thought the end result of the zookeeper being launched over the rail and being eaten by the hyenas was getting his just due. I thought it was
very convenient.
It was one of the weaker fight scenes.
It just sort of happened. Like it's not particularly memorable. Nothing majorly happened. I mean, it is kind of poetic in the fact that because the pig got eaten and the principal got eaten, of course the main bad guy gets eaten at the end. But
right.
Yeah.
And I really liked the end bit with like you alluded to earlier with Giles and Xander, where basically to kind of minimize his own shame of what had happened.
He pretends that he doesn't remember. Yeah.
Right. And Giles is like, your secret is safe with me, kind of thing. And again, as we go along, Giles gets more snarky with Xander more than anyone, and he has been in certain instances here early in the season as well. But deep down, I think he cares for all of these kids, the core kids, and
definitely.
He's a father figure to them all, and these kind of moments really stand out to me. So I like that bit. The other disappointing factor was that this had nothing to do with a prophecy, the master.
It was just it was Demon of the Week, wasn't it? So
it was definitely filler, and it was like It very much reminded me of like the Smallville episodes, like where Fast and the Furious Pete, where or the Stride Gum episode, like
that's the only way people remember that episode is it's the episode with the gum.
Yeah, right. So it definitely had that aspect to it. But
it does have something interesting though. This is the first episode where someone gets locked in the library cage.
Yeah,
it's also the first episode where like Xander tries to force himself on Buffy, which is unfortunate that it happens more than once. But
yeah, that's an unfortunate.
But it just shows just the depth that Xander has fallen. Like he's
sure.
irredeemable at that moment. Like unless they get this like demon hyena out of him, like Xander's just a real bad dude at that.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. So
it's just.
But
it's a pretty good scene when Xander's locked in the cage, I must say.
Yeah. Oh, and the way the way he tricks Willow, he plays on her. Again, solid acting by Nicholas Brendan there in this episode. So there are some redeeming qualities, but on the whole, it's a very weak episode, I think. Is there anything else?
I wouldn't even say it's necessarily one of Buffy's worst episodes, because, well, I think Beer Bad would certainly take that cake. That it would take the cake, but it's just kind of a forgettable episode.
Yeah,
and Buffy on its worst day is usually, even with its worst episodes, they're usually typically pretty memorable. So to be just totally forgettable, like apart from a couple of standout scenes, it's just kind of a nothing episode for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's not bad per se, just utterly forgettable, which is
a solid 5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
I know I've skipped ahead to the rating there, but it's right down the middle. It's 5. It's not terrible. It's not good. It's just there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it an extra point, half a point, so 5.5 for all the extra, the good acting by Nicholas Brendan and all the Giles moments, and so. But yeah, like you said, just about right down the middle. And
no Cordelia in this episode. Like, she's completely absent from this one.
Yeah, which is surprising.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe if Cordelia had been involved, like especially like with Xander turns into a bully, it would have been quite funny to have a scene where he puts Cordelia in her place.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
But those two had some great scenes later on. So in the series, so for sure that
I just kind of missed her in an episode about bullying. I kind of wanted the resident bully character to be there.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they just felt that they couldn't have another bully character in the episode. Maybe they weren't ready, because in having her there, and if Xander and the others were picking on Cordelia, maybe they were worried that they give us too much sympathy for the character too early on. Maybe they wanted to get to that a bit more gradually.
Yeah. No, good point. So yeah, 5.5 for me. But before we wrap things up this week, I noticed we did forget something from the previous episode. So just to double back really quick. There was a Superman reference.
Oh shit! Did I completely blank that? Where was it? I completely.
It was. I think it was. It was either the library scene where Buffy was talking about her first date with Owen, or at the house when Giles, interrupts before she's about to go out.
I must have just zoned out for a second, because I'm completely blanking on
when she mentions Clark. She mentions Clark Kent.
Right, yeah, like rushing out like Clark Kent with a quick excuse kind of thing.
Yeah, or having a day job or something along those lines. But I thought that the Clark Kent reference was kind of cool. So yeah, just to mention that, I thought that was interesting. It was cool. And it makes sense, because she was talking to Owen about being two people, much like Clark is, two. There are multiple layers and versions to Clark too. So I thought that was neat. Being a fan of both, anytime I get a Superman reference, it's cool.
Which is funny that I would have thought I would have noticed, noticed when that happened. But
yeah.
I must have checked my phone for a second, and it just must have just gone straight past me.
Yeah, and then of course we know that Joss Whedon had his brush with Superman in 2017.
Yeah, and I like his Superman. It's one of the best parts of that version of Justice League.
I do too. Aside from his mouth, I think, where he did a solid job with Superman.
I think if he didn't have sort of the whole mustache problem, people would look a lot more favorably.
Oh, I would think so. Yeah, for sure. But it was a nice mention. I thought it was cool. So.
Yeah. And there's so many comic references throughout the series.
Oh, absolutely. And hopefully we'll pick up on some more of them as we go along. But absolutely. that pretty much wraps it up this episode. As I said,
just say one more thing about the pack. There was a great moment where Flutie's talking about how it costs an absolute fortune to feed a pig, but it's a running joke about how the food in the cafeteria sucks. I'm sure if there's leftover food waste, the pig would happily eat that.
Oh, absolutely.
Pigs are one of the cheapest animals in the world. You can feed because they will eat literally anything.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny.
I don't think the pig would object to.
I mean, how much is it costing to feed this pig? The pig must be eating better than the students.
Probably, I can see that. Yeah, I can. And when now that you mention it, when the pack steals the hot dogs of the other kids, and they're like, it's too cooked. Well, why don't you just go to the store and buy a pack of raw hot dogs?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that have satisfied your?
Yeah. I think they just wanted the hunt, didn't they? They wanted to kill.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, fair point. But we'll end this week's episode on that note. And as I said at the top of the show, Tom and I are going to try and work things out so that this can definitely be more
regular than it has been. Yeah,
brought to you. So we'll work on that. And in the meantime, before the next episode or episodes, if you want to watch along with us, the next episodes are episodes 7 and 8 of season 1. Yeah. So if you want to follow along with us, that's what we'll be doing next. And if you want to discuss Buffy or Angel or any of the characters with us in between our next episodes, you can on social media. So, Tom, if they want to talk Buffy, where do they find you?
On Twitter, let me just check. My Twitter is @tgallagher7. But alternatively, I mean, this is going to be on YouTube anyway. Leave us a comment. I check the comments every now and then. So if I see that there's people wanting to talk about that stuff, I'll happily join in the discussion.
Perfect. And if you want to find me, it's @Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. We also have the Twitter account for the podcast network, which is @MMNPDC. We have a Facebook page, which will be listed in the description below. Click that. I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there if you like. But until next time, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.
So long.